Hello everyone and welcome to my top 25 wrestlers of 2023. Usually I would do something like a top 10, but I wanted to shout out some more professional wrestlers and superstars, so we're making it a top 25 list instead. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get right to it. Make sure you like and subscribe for more end of the year content. Number 25, we have Julia Hart. I would say her and Brody King have been the most consistent members of the House of Black. She's been doing really great work in her new gimmick. She had a decent no-holds-barred match with Anna Jay earlier this year. At Wrestle Dream, she challenged Kris Statlander for the TBS Championship but was unsuccessful. However, at Full Gear, she would win the TBS Championship in a pretty good triple threat match with Sky Blue and Kris Statlander. Speaking of which, Julia Hart's been in an ongoing storyline with Sky Blue, so maybe they'll have something good cooked up for 2024. Great character work, and she's only getting better in the ring. Number 24, Kris Statlander. She came back from injury at Double or Nothing and won the TBS Championship, defeating Jade Cargill, and she didn't just beat her once, she beat her twice. I wish her reign was a little bit more eventful, but hey, she still had some solid title defenses, and she lost the title at Full Gear, like I said, to Julia Hart. Just a little bit ago on Collision, she had a great tag team street fight, teaming up with Willow Nightingale to take on Diamante and Mercedes Martinez. I honestly wouldn't mind seeing Kris Statlander win another championship in 2024. Number 23, LA Knight. The first half of LA Knight's 2023 was a bit messy, but around Money in the Bank and forward, he's been used alright. He really got himself over with the fans and has been selling tons of merchandise. At SummerSlam, he won the Slim Jim Battle Royal and now is like their spokesperson or main ad guy, along with Bianca Belair, so I guess that's something. In the main event of Crown Jewel, he challenged Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Championship, but he lost. However, it's still a championship main event, so that's pretty good. Other than that, nothing super eventful, like he had a feud with The Miz and linked up with John Cena for a little bit, but he's still a massive fan favorite who gets a great reaction every time his music hits. Number 22, Logan Paul. Logan Paul has had 5 matches in 2023. His first match was the Royal Rumble, where he had that fun spot with Ricochet, and he also eliminated Seth Rollins, landing himself in the final 3 of the Royal Rumble match. He had a decent feud with Seth Rollins heading into WrestleMania 39, where he lost, but the match was still pretty good. Then he showed up in the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, and he was one of the favorites to win the damn thing. And although he didn't win, he still had a pretty big moment when him and Ricochet did that Spanish fly from in the ring, out the ring, onto a couple of tables. It was a bit messy, but hell, people were talking about it at least. Speaking of Ricochet, Paul and Ricochet had a fun match at SummerSlam, which Logan Paul would win. Sadly though, they hyped the hell out of that match, so when it actually happened, I thought it was pretty good, but it didn't really live up to what they were hyping it up to be. At Crown Jewel, he would beat Rey Mysterio to win the United States Championship, so Logan Paul, I would say, as current United States Champion, he's had a pretty good 2023, albeit, only a few appearances here and there. Number 21, we have Bianca Belair. She was Raw Women's Champion coming into 2023. At the Royal Rumble, she had an alright title match against Alexa Bliss. At WrestleMania, she had a great match with Asuka that I personally believe Asuka should have won, but still, great match nonetheless. Then at Backlash, we got a really fun match with her and Iyo Sky. Going back to Asuka, Asuka would actually beat Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship at Night of Champions. Belair would win the title back a few months later in a really fun triple threat match at SummerSlam, but a few minutes later she would lose it after Iyo Sky cashed in her Money in the Bank briefcase. She tried to win her title back once again at Crown Jewel, but due to a returning Kairi Sane, she would end up losing that match. But to end her year on a high note, her team won the War Games match at Survivor Series. Number 20, Christian Cage. He was injured coming into 2023, but earlier in the year at Revolution, he had a fun final burial match against Jungle Boy. It was a fun little match, and it was funny seeing Christian Cage being put into a casket and then having it just drop right down into the floor. Later that month, Cage would feud with Wardlow over the TNT Championship. He lost a ladder match against Wardlow at Double or Nothing. The ladder match was, some spots a bit messy, but you know what? It was still kind of fun. He would then help his right hand of destruction, Luchasaurus, beat Wardlow for the TNT title. He began to hold the title himself and proclaimed that they were both TNT champion. He would go into a feud with Darby Allin, which led to a great match on Collision. Christian teamed up with Swerve to face Darby Allin and Sting at All in London in a very fun coffin match. They lost the match, but it was still one of the highlights of the show. He would go on to actually win the TNT championship in a triple threat match with Luchasaurus and Darby Allin. He defended the TNT title against Darby Allin in a brutal 2 out of 3 falls match at Wrestle Dream. On an episode of Collision, he defeated Bryan Danielson to retain his title, and most recently he defeated longtime friend Adam Copeland on an episode of Dynamite to once again retain the TNT title. Christian Cage has been a major highlight of AEW this year. Anytime that man is on screen in a match or cutting a promo, I am entertained. Number 19, Iyo Sky. It took a while for Iyo Sky to really get going in 2023. She entered the year as tag team champions with Dakota Kai. She had a pretty good showing in the Royal Rumble match. Her and Dakota would lose the tag titles to Lita and Becky Lynch on an episode of Raw. and then Damage Control lost their 6-woman tag match at WrestleMania 39. Sky became #1 contender for the Raw Women's Championship and had a really fun match with Belair at Backlash, and although she lost, she put in a really good showing. She then went on to win the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, and it had a really creative finish, and it was probably my favorite match on the show. She cashed in the briefcase on Bianca Belair at SummerSlam to win the Women's Championship, which was really cool. She went on to successfully defend her title in a triple threat match at Fastlane against Asuka and Charlotte, and with the help of Kairi Sane, she defeated Bianca Belair at Crown Jewel. Iyo and her team would end up losing their War Games match at Survivor Series, but Iyo still got to jump off the cage with the trash can on her head, so, you know, there's that. A little bit of a rough start for Damage Control and Iyo Sky, but the last half of the year has been pretty good for Iyo. Number 18, Timeless Toni Storm. Storm was still a part of the Outcasts in early 2023. At Double or Nothing, she beat an injured Jamie Hayter to win the AEW Women's Championship for the second time. She defended the title quite a bit before losing it to Hikaru Shida on an episode of Dynamite a few months later. Storm failed to win back the title in a fatal 4-way at All in London, and then again against Saraya on Dynamite. Hikaru Shida would win the title again, but soon lost it to the now timeless Toni Storm at Full Gear. Toni Storm won the women's title twice this year along with Shida, but Toni Storm is mainly on this list because of her new timeless character. She's doing a fantastic job, and she has one of the most entertaining gimmicks in wrestling currently. The black and white filter, the way she pronounces her words, the way she just shows off to the camera, it's just wonderful. Plus, anytime we get to see RJ City on our screens is a big plus for me. Number 17, Adam Cole. Adam Cole beat Daniel Garcia back in March in his first match back from the injury he suffered at Forbidden Door 2022. He entered a not super great feud with Chris Jericho. They had a pretty disappointing unsanctioned match at Double or Nothing. It was a pretty underwhelming feud for his return, but what came next was absolutely stellar. Adam Cole and MJF had their title eliminator time limit draw on Dynamite. AEW would hold a blind eliminator #1 contenders tag team tournament which paired Adam Cole and MJF together. Weeks of tag matches and funny videos of the two bonding were awesome. They became probably the most popular act in wrestling this past summer. Cole and MJF did not win the AEW tag titles, but MJF promised Adam Cole a world championship match at AEW All in London. MJF and Cole would go on to defeat Aussie Open on the All in London pre-show to win the ROH tag titles. In the main event of the biggest wrestling show in years, Adam Cole and MJF put on one hell of a match. Adam Cole was unsuccessful, but it was still a pretty happy ending for the two of them. The next weekend, they would defend their Ring of Honor tag titles against Dark Order and retain, while also setting up a match between Samoa Joe and MJF. Sadly, during the Samoa Joe and MJF match at Dynamite Grand Slam, Cole leaped off the entrance ramp and he broke his ankle. Adam Cole is still recovering from the injury, but has still been on Dynamite from time to time. Number 16, CM Punk. Oh, CM Punk, what a year you've had. Punk spent the first half of the year recovering from an injury he got during the main event of All Out 2022. In June, CM Punk returned to AEW on the first episode of Collision, a show that was pretty much made just for him. He had a few good trios matches with FTR, and he competed in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament where he defeated Kojima at Forbidden Door and then Samoa Joe for the very first time. He made it to the finals of the tournament before losing to Ricky Starks. Punk would introduce the Real World Championship and defend it against Ricky Starks with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat as the special outside enforcer. Also on Collision, CMFTR challenged the House of Black for the Trios titles in a very good match, but lost due to an interfering Samoa Joe. Punk and Joe had a good match at All in London for the Real World title, which CM Punk won. That would be CM Punk's last AEW match because before he walked out for his match, he got into a backstage altercation with Jack Perry and was fired later that week. A few months passed and rumors of Punk returning to WWE at Survivor Series began to stir up. And wouldn't you know it, at the end of the night in front of the Chicago crowd, Cult of Personality played and out came CM Punk and he was officially back home in WWE. While Punk didn't do too much in 2023, him showing up at Survivor Series was probably one of the biggest moments of the year. Number 15, Becky Lynch. In February, Becky Lynch and Lita won the women's tag team titles. Becky, Lita, and Trish Stratus teamed up together to defeat Damage Control at WrestleMania 39. Lynch would soon lose her tag titles after Lita was attacked backstage and Trish Stratus filled in as her partner. After the loss, Trish Stratus blindsided Lynch and they started a feud that went on just a little bit too long. Becky lost to Trish at Night of Champions thanks to Zoe Stark. Becky, Trish, and Zoe entered the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, but neither of them won. They both missed out on SummerSlam sadly, but they still continued the brawl and have different matches on Raw. At Payback, Becky Lynch defeated Trish Stratus in a great steel cage match to finally end their rivalry. On an episode of NXT, Becky Lynch would actually defeat Tiffany Stratton to win the NXT Women's Championship for the first time. She would defend the title on Raw and even beat Stratton again in a really good Extreme Rules match at NXT No Mercy. Lynch would lose the title to Lyra Valkyria at NXT Halloween Havoc. At Survivor Series, she was a part of the winning team in the Women's War Games match. To end her year, Becky Lynch is currently feuding with Nia Jax. Number 14, Swerve Strickland. Swerve has been killing it this year. He feels like he's right there, ready to be a main event player. He headed into 2023 sort of feuding with Keith Lee. They never had a big match to end their feud, so that was kind of disappointing. In April, he lost his Defy World Championship to Nick Wayne, but he also was able to challenge for the AAA Mega title. Although he was unsuccessful, that's still a pretty big deal. At Double or Nothing, he came so close to winning the International Championship in the Blackjack Battle Royal. He lost to Orange Cassidy once again after going for the International title, but definitely seemed like he was going to be the one to dethrone Cassidy. He faced off against Hiroshi Tanahashi on an episode of Collision, and at Forbidden Door, Swerve and the Mogul Embassy won their match on the Forbidden Door 0 Hour. He entered a feud with Darby Allin, picking up a win over Darby and Nick Wayne. Swerve and Christian Cage had a fun coffin match at All In London, but came up short even though Swerve's hair was still outside the coffin when the lid closed. His very next match was against Hangman Page at WrestleDream, where he picked up a huge win. At Full Gear, Swerve and Hangman had an absolutely insane Texas death match, and Swerve once again picked up another big win. If it wasn't for that match, Swerve might not be this high on the list, but that was a fantastic match and possibly match of the year. Swerve is currently in the AEW Continental Classic, picking up some big wins, and next year I can see Swerve placing even higher on a list like this. Number 13, Jey Uso. Jey Uso's had a pretty good year. He was a part of the hottest storyline throughout most of the year. The Usos were undisputed tag team champions heading into 2023. We got some fun stuff with Jey getting closer with Sami Zayn as part of the Bloodline, but then he would betray Sami Zayn to stick with Roman Reigns and the rest of the Bloodline. He main evented night 1 of WrestleMania 39 with his brother Jimmy, losing their tag team gold to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. The Usos would lose their tag title rematch, but pick up a win with Solo Sikoa at Backlash. Jey also had the chance to challenge for the United States Championship, but was unsuccessful. The Usos would eventually break off from the Bloodline and defeated Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank. Jey Uso was the first person to pin Roman Reigns in over 3 years. He faced Roman Reigns in Tribal Combat in the main event of SummerSlam. He came pretty close to winning the damn thing, but his brother Jimmy cost him the match and derailed Jey's huge wave of momentum. He would then, quote, leave WWE, but then returned at Payback to be a part of the Raw roster. Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes beat the Judgment Day to win the tag titles at Fastlane, but they lost the titles about 10 days later. Jey Uso and his team won the men's War Games match at Survivor Series, and now he's sort of in a feud with Drew McIntyre where he's paying for all the past Bloodline antics. Jey Uso has remained in a pretty prominent position since leaving the Bloodline. It's just that his match with Roman and his 10-day tag title reign weren't the greatest. But still, it's a huge step in the right direction to truly becoming main event Jey Uso. Number 12, Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy is probably one of the top 3 champions to come out of 2023. Almost every single match Orange Cassidy has had this year, he defended the International Championship. So I'm gonna list every person Orange Cassidy defeated while defending his international title. Kip Sabian, Jay Lethal, Lee Moriarty, Wheeler Yuta, Big Bill, Jeff Jarrett, The Butcher, Dralistico, Buddy Matthews, Gabriel Kidd, Bandito, Daniel Garcia, Kyle Fletcher, everyone that was in the Blackjack Battle Royal at Double or Nothing, Swerve Strickland, Katsuyori Shibata and Zack Sabre Jr., Lance Archer, AR Fox, Johnny TV, Aaron Solo, and Penta El Zero Miedo. At Revolution, he and Danhausen were in a Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match for the AEW Tag Team titles, but they did not win. He and his partner Darby Allin would make it to the semifinals of the Blind Eliminator Tag Tournament. Orange Cassidy, along with Best Friends, Eddie Kingston, and Penta went to war in Stadium Stampede at All in London. They got a big victory over the Blackpool Combat Club and Santana and Ortiz. At All Out the following weekend, he main evented the show, but he lost his international championship to Jon Moxley. Cassidy would win the title back a short while later after an injured Jon Moxley dropped the title to Rey Fenix, who also got pretty banged up. Orange Cassidy once again defended the title on pay-per-view against Jon Moxley at Full Gear, and Orange Cassidy got the big win. It's still pretty early into his second reign, but it hasn't been hitting the same as his first. But you know what? I'll give it some time. Number 11, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes has been at the top of WWE since returning from injury in January. He returned at the number 30 spot in the Men's Royal Rumble and won. At WrestleMania 39, he was going to finally finish his story, winning the title his dad never won. In the main event of Mania 39, Cody Rhodes was unable to defeat Roman Reigns though, due to a Samoan spike from Solo Sikoa. The night after WrestleMania, Cody started a feud with Brock Lesnar after Lesnar beat the hell out of him. Cody would beat Brock Lesnar just barely at Backlash. Rhodes would enter a World Heavyweight Championship tournament, but Brock Lesnar took Cody out in the middle of the first round. Lesnar would make Cody Rhodes pass out at Night of Champions after putting his broken arm into the Kimura lock. At Money in the Bank, he took a breather from Brock, easily putting away Dominic Mysterio, and then the feud would resume as Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar would have their final match at SummerSlam. Cody won the match and also the respect of Lesnar. Him and Jey Uso would win the tag titles at Fastlane, but would lose them shortly after. And at Survivor Series, Cody and his team would win their War Games match against the Judgment Day and Drew McIntyre. Rhodes has just now entered a feud with Shinsuke Nakamura, which should be pretty good, I'm hoping. I think 2024 is Cody Rhodes' year to finally win the big one. Now we're in the top 10, baby. Let's freaking go. Strap yourselves in. Number 10, Roman Reigns. I originally didn't have Roman Reigns in the top 10. He's wrestled like 7 televised matches and 2 of them were tag matches. I get he's held WWE's top prize for over 1,000 days, but still, if you don't wrestle, you don't really deserve to be on a top wrestlers list. However, Roman is still one of the hottest things in wrestling when he's actually there. He retained the undisputed title against Kevin Owens at the Royal Rumble, and after the match got betrayed by Sami Zayn, which got one of the loudest pops of the year. He went on to beat Sami Zayn in Zayn's home country of Canada at Elimination Chamber in one of the most heartbreaking losses ever, maybe. At WrestleMania 39, he was able to defeat Cody Rhodes thanks to Bloodline shenanigans. However, in order to bring the tag team titles back to the Bloodline, he and Solo challenged Zayn and Owens at Night of Champions. Thanks to an Uso betrayal, Roman and Sikoa lost. The Bloodline was falling apart and Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa lost another tag team match, this time at Money in the Bank to the Usos. Like I mentioned earlier, it was the first time that Roman Reigns was pinned in over 3 years. Roman Reigns defended his undisputed championship against Jey Uso in Tribal Combat at SummerSlam. In Tribal Combat, there can be no interference, and Reigns retained his title due to an interfering Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso. Okay. In his most recent defense, Roman defeated LA Knight at Crown Jewel with the help of course, Jimmy Uso. Number 9, Hangman Adam Page. Hangman Adam Page's first match back after suffering a concussion in October of 2022 was against Jon Moxley at the Kia Forum, which he won. He continued his feud with Moxley, and at Revolution they had a Texas Death Match, which was pretty freaking brutal, and Hanger would also win that match as well. At the next pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, Adam Page and the rest of the Elite lost to the Blackpool Combat Club in Anarchy in the Arena. The match was really fun and even featured an exploding super kick. The Elite teamed together a few more times and picked up a couple of wins over the BCC, including one at Forbidden Door. At Blood and Guts, Page and the Golden Elite once again defeated the BCC thanks to Pac and Takeshita walking out on Yuta, Claudio, and Moxley. Hangman teamed with Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi at All in London in a losing effort against Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Takeshita. The next weekend, though, at All Out, he won a charity battle royal and donated $50,000 to the Chicago Public Education Fund. At AEW Grand Slam, he and the Young Bucks beat the Mogul Embassy to win the ROH Trios titles. The Young Bucks lost their Trios titles back to the Mogul Embassy a little over a month after winning them. Hangman was in a feud with Swerve Strickland and lost to him at WrestleDream via shenanigans. Adam Page had his banger of a Texas Death Match with Swerve Strickland at Full Gear and is now involved in the MJF Devil storyline. Lots of fun matches and some big W's for Hanger this year. Probably one of the most consistent workers in AEW. Number 8, Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is probably the most exciting wrestler to watch inside the ring, and he's had numerous matches and moments this year that were awesome. For starters, looking at his matches on Cage Match, he has over 50 wins this year, dominating in tag matches with the United Empire and New Japan, and making some more appearances for AEW. In his first match of 2023 at Wrestle Kingdom 17, he lost the IWGP United States Championship to Kenny Omega. It was an amazing match where Ospreay looked like he was put through absolute hell. Will Ospreay would defeat Tanahashi and Lance Archer to become number 1 contender for the IWGP US title. At Forbidden Door, Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega, in my opinion, slightly outdid their Wrestle Kingdom match, and Will Ospreay won back the IWGP US title. That Forbidden Door match was amazing, and I think it's tied with the Full Gear Texas Death Match for my match of the year. Will Ospreay entered the G1 tournament in Block B, where he picked up some wins over Kenta, Okada, and David Finlay. At AEW All in London, Will Ospreay picked up a huge win against Chris Jericho in front of his friends and family at Wembley Stadium. At WrestleDream, he would team with Takeshita and Sammy Guevara to defeat Jericho, Omega, and Kota Ibushi. Recently, he's even shown up in Impact Wrestling and put on some good matches with Josh Alexander, Mike Bailey, and Eddie Edwards. His most recent US title defense was against Shota Umino, which I missed out on that match, but I've seen some highlights, and holy hell, Ospreay is insane. Number 7, Gunther. The Ring General Gunther, much like Roman Reigns, has been champion all year. He entered 2023 with the Intercontinental Championship, and he's held on to it since mid-2022. He kicked off the year with a very strong performance in the Royal Rumble match, lasting 71 minutes, which broke the record for longest time in a Royal Rumble match. He defended his title in an amazing triple threat match at Mania 39 against Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. At Night of Champions, he defeated Mustafa Ali in a quick but still very good match. At Money in the Bank, he had another quick match, this time with Matt Riddle, It wasn't the greatest match or anything, but was still pretty fine. And after the match, he was attacked by a returning Drew McIntyre. Gunther retained his title at SummerSlam, defeating Drew McIntyre in a very solid match. He would then go on to enter a little mini feud with Chad Gable, which was pretty freaking good. His last televised title defense was at Survivor Series, where he beat one of my favorite Intercontinental champions, The Miz. Some of his other title defenses have been against Braun Strowman, Madcap Moss, Xavier Woods, Tommaso Ciampa, and Bronson Reed. Throughout the year, he's been keeping the Intercontinental Championship prestigious while also teaming with Imperium, even though they tease a fallout every other couple of months. Number 6, the Judgment Day. Here's a big one. The Judgment Day have been probably the most featured faction in wrestling this year. They're on almost every show WWE has to offer. Raw, SmackDown, NXT, pay-per-views. Hell, I'm pretty sure Dominic Mysterio will show up on NXT Level Up at some point. They have done so much this year, for better or for worse. Also, this entry isn't including JD McDonough, because he didn't officially join JD until recently, and he really just hasn't done much this year. Starting off with Finn Balor. Balor has eaten numerous losses this year. He teamed up with Rhea Ripley to lose to Edge and Beth Phoenix at Elimination Chamber. He lost to Brood Edge inside Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania 39. Even as his demon persona, he's still taken L's. He would make it to the semifinals of the World Heavyweight Championship tournament, but lost to Seth Rollins. He would go on to lose to Rollins 2 more times at Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, trying to take the world title off of him. However, I have to note, Rollins vs. Balor at SummerSlam might be one of my favorite matches of the year. Balor finally got a big W, teaming with Damian Priest to win the tag titles in a Steel City street fight at Payback. They lost the titles a month later at Fastlane, but then won them back shortly after. Balor and Judgment Day, along with Drew McIntyre, lost their War Games match at Survivor Series. Now moving on to Dominic Mysterio. He's had a very solid 2023, really soaking it up as a chicken shit heel along with Rhea Ripley. Dom had a big match at Mania 39 facing his dad Rey Mysterio. He lost, but he had a pretty cool entrance and the feud was solid. He picked up several singles wins and teamed with his Judgment Day pals for the first half of the year. He lost to Cody Rhodes at Money in the Bank, but soon after though, he would defeat Wes Lee on NXT to become North American champion. He defended the title on Raw a few times and had a very fun triple threat match for the title at Great American Bash. He defended against Dragon Lee a couple times, but then would finally lose to Trick Williams at No Mercy. He won the title right back on the next episode of NXT. He actually challenged for the NXT title as well, but he would lose. He retained his North American title over Nathan Frazier at Halloween Havoc. He took part in the War Games match along with Judgment Day, and he recently just lost the North American Championship again to Dragon Lee at NXT Deadline. One of the best heels this year, I would say, and he's really stepped up his game. Next is Damian Priest. Priest at the start of the year qualified for the United States Championship Elimination Chamber match. He didn't win, but still a pretty good start. At the next pay-per-view, Damian would have one of the most fun matches of 2023. At Backlash, Priest faced Bad Bunny in a San Juan street fight. The crowd was electric and Priest helped Bad Bunny put on a very entertaining match. Damian also was involved in the World Heavyweight Championship tournament, but lost in the first round. Priest challenged Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title in a solid Raw main event. He didn't win, but he didn't seem out of place in the main event. He would enter the men's Money in the Bank ladder match and he surprisingly got the win. It seemed as if Logan Paul or LA Knight would win, but WWE pulled a little Judgment Day swerve on us. Speaking of Judgment Day, tension was building between Priest and Finn Balor during Balor's world title feud with Seth Rollins. Nothing really ever came of it though, and Damian and Finn won the tag titles in a Steel City street fight at Payback. At Fastlane, like I mentioned, they lost the titles, but they won them right back. At Crown Jewel, Priest lost a match against Cody Rhodes, and at Survivor Series, he and his team lost the men's War Games match. A few notable L's for Damian, but he still got some really impressive wins. Last but not least, we have Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley has had a very stop-start year. She won the Women's Royal Rumble from the #1 spot, becoming the 4th person to ever do so. Her and Balor lost a mixed tag match at Elimination Chamber. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte had a really good match at Mania 39, and Rhea came out on top, winning the SmackDown Women's Championship, which later became the Women's World Championship. Her first defense was against Zelina Vega at Backlash. Rhea would win, but the attention was mainly on Vega, which, you know what, it's understandable. Her next big defense was against Natalya at Night of Champions, and that match lasted just over a minute. They had a rematch on Raw that sort of made up for it, I guess. She didn't have a match at SummerSlam, but at Payback she defeated Raquel Rodriguez in an alright match, and then she beat her again on Raw a week later. At Crown Jewel, she retained her championship in a fatal 5-way. And at Survivor Series, she beat Zoe Stark to retain her title once again. I was hoping her reign would be a bit more impactful, but I don't think she's losing the title anytime soon, so you know what, let's hope for the best. The Judgment Day, while not perfect, have been pretty much running things on Monday Night Raw, and at some points NXT as well. Number 5, Bryan Danielson. It's been a great year for Bryan Danielson, but it's also had a few rough spots. At the start of the year, he was feuding with MJF over the AEW Championship. MJF put Danielson in matches every week leading up to Revolution, and oh boy, what a lineup. Takeshita, Bandito, Brian Cage, Timothy Thatcher, and Roosh. At Revolution, Bryan Danielson got his title shot facing MJF in a 60-minute Iron Man match. The match went into overtime and MJF actually made Bryan Danielson tap out. It was a fantastic match and quite possibly the best Iron Man match ever. Danielson took a little time off and came back to feud with the Elite with his Blackpool Combat Club buddies. At Double or Nothing, the BCC defeated the Elite and Anarchy in the arena. Bryan would then challenge Kazuchika Okada to a match at Forbidden Door. It was a decent match, of course, but towards the end, Danielson broke his arm. He kept going a little while longer, but the match was cut short, and Danielson had the lock in a submission on Okada, forcing him to tap out. Unfortunately, Danielson would miss All in London due to the broken arm, but he returned at All Out to defeat Ricky Starks in a great strap match. Then later the same month on an episode of Collision, Danielson picked up another win over Ricky Starks, this time in a Texas Death Match. At Wrestle Dream, Danielson had his long-awaited match with Zack Sabre Jr., and holy crap, what a phenomenal match. I'm not the biggest fan of technical wrestling, but these two freaking brought it. Match of the Year contender for sure, plus throw in Moxley on commentary losing his mind. It's fantastic. Bryan would then go after the TNT Championship, defeating Swerve Strickland to get a shot at Christian Cage. He challenged Christian Cage for the TNT title on Collision, but he was unsuccessful. Danielson would break his orbital bone in a match with Andrade El Idolo on Collision, but return a little over a month later to compete in the Continental Classic. Bryan wrestled in Ring of Honor for the first time in 15 years at Final Battle. Danielson, Moxley, and Claudio lost to FTR and Mark Briscoe. Recently on Collision, Danielson had a great match with Brody King, which brought him up to 9 points in the Continental Classic. He spent some time on the shelf this year, but whenever Bryan Danielson was in the ring, he was putting on insane matches. Number 4, Kenny Omega. Omega's first match of 2023 was the amazing Wrestle Kingdom 17 match with Will Ospreay, where he won the IWGP US Championship for the second time. Then a week later, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks won their Best of 7 series with Death Triangle. They became the AEW Trios champions for the second time, winning the Escalera de la Muerte match. The Elite had a few title defenses before dropping the Trios titles to the House of Black at Revolution in a very good match. Omega would face El Hijo del Vikingo on an episode of Dynamite, which many considered to be a dream match. It was very fun and very spot-filled. Omega actually defended the IWGP US title on Dynamite against the United Empire's Jeff Cobb. To get ready for the Elite and BCC's Anarchy in the Arena match, Omega faced Jon Moxley in a steel cage match which featured a gnarly V-trigger through the cage wall and a Don Callis betrayal. That V-trigger was actually insane. Like, how the hell did Kenny Omega not break his leg or anything like that? One of the craziest moments this year. Omega and friends would lose their Anarchy in the Arena match at Double or Nothing. Then a month later at Forbidden Door, Omega and Ospreay would have their wonderful match for the IWGP US title, and Ospreay won his title back. Words cannot describe how amazing their Forbidden Door match was. The Elite would finally get a win over the Blackpool Combat Club with help from Kota Ibushi and Blood and Guts. A few days before that though, Omega once again had a match with Vikingo. This time the AAA Mega Championship was on the line and Vikingo would actually retain. Surprisingly, Omega didn't have a singles match at All in London, instead having a trios match, which his team lost. The following weekend at All Out, Omega and Konosuke Takeshita had a great singles match, and Kenny also lost that match as well. Omega started teaming up with Chris Jericho as the Golden Jets. They picked up a couple of tag wins, but lost their match at Wrestle Dream against the Don Callis family. When MJF was close to surpassing Omega's AEW World Championship reign, Omega challenged him to a match on Collision. MJF and Kenny Omega had an amazing championship match, but Omega just couldn't get the job done, and now MJF is the longest reigning AEW World Champ. The Golden Jets, along with Kota Ibushi and Paul White, defeated the Don Callis family and Brian Cage in a street fight on an episode of Dynamite, which was all sorts of wild. At Full Gear, Omega and Jericho faced off against Kenny's pals, the Young Bucks, where if the Golden Jets won, they would get the Young Bucks tag title opportunity. It was a pretty decent match, and Omega and Jericho got the victory. Unfortunately, Omega recently shared that he'll be out of action indefinitely due to medical reasons, so well wishes and speedy recovery to the cleaner. Just like Bryan Danielson, this year has been full of ups and downs for Omega. I'm not the biggest fan of the Golden Jets nor the direction all the Don Callis stuff is going, but several amazing matches and moments land Omega in the top 4. Number 3, Sami Zayn. This year, Sami Zayn had a great start, an alright middle, and a decent end. WWE really could have just pushed Sami aside after the Roman Reigns stuff, but he won the tag team titles with his best friend and continued to stay around Raw's top storylines. At the Royal Rumble in January, he nailed the Tribal Chief in the back with a steel chair and got a huge reaction. He went on to face Roman for the undisputed title in his home country at Elimination Chamber. Sadly, he didn't get the victory and soon after was betrayed by Jey Uso after the pair had just been getting closer. Zayn and Kevin Owens challenged the Usos for the tag team titles at Mania 30 39, and they were victorious. They had a couple more matches with the Usos before moving on to Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa at Night of Champions, which was a huge moment for Sami Zayn. They held on to the titles, beating teams like Imperium, Judgment Day, and Pretty Deadly. Kevin Owens was slightly injured during the summertime, so their reign never got too crazy, but they still had a solid run with the titles. It took about 4 months, but they finally defended their titles on pay-per-view again, losing to the Judgment Day at Payback. At one point, Sami Zayn challenged Dominic Mysterio for his North American Championship, but was unsuccessful. Owens and Zayn lost a few more tag title matches trying to regain their championships, but just couldn't do it. Later in the year, Owens got sent to SmackDown, and Zayn stayed on Raw to continue the never-ending Judgment Day feud. Zayn would beat JD McDonough on the Crown Jewel kickoff show. Then a couple days later on Raw, Seth Rollins offered him a World Championship match, which Zayn accepted. Sami Zayn didn't win the title, but at least he tried. Rollins and Zayn were still chill with each other though, and were on the winning team inside War Games at Survivor Series. I honestly don't know where Sami Zayn goes from here, but I'm hoping he'll have a good showing in the Royal Rumble match and maybe even become a world champion in 2024. Number 2, Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins has been killing it this year. In January, he was still in the United States Championship title picture, unable to regain the title he held in late 2022. He made it to the Final Four of the Royal Rumble match before getting eliminated by none other than Logan Paul. Rollins would then qualify for the United States Championship Elimination Chamber match and nearly won the thing, but once again, Logan Paul was there to cost Seth Rollins the match. At Mania 39, Rollins got his revenge by beating Logan Paul on the grandest stage of them all. For pretty much no reason at all, Rollins faced Omos at Backlash and won with a giant curb stomp. Decent little match, but was definitely strange. Now here's where Rollins really got cooking. He made it to the finals of the World Heavyweight Championship tournament and faced off against AJ Styles at Night of Champions to see who would walk away with the brand new championship. Rollins picked up the win and became world champion once again. Seth Rollins wanted to be a defending world champion, unlike a certain tribal part-timer. He defended against the likes of Damian Priest, Braun Breaker on NXT, Finn Balor at Money in the Bank, and Balor again at SummerSlam, which I think has been his best defense so far. Then we move on to the Shinsuke Nakamura feud, where he beat Nakamura at Payback and at Fastlane in a last man standing match. Injured back and all, Rollins kept defending his title. At Crown Jewel, he defeated Drew McIntyre and then a few days later defeated Sami Zayn on Raw. And for the last time on this list, I mentioned the Survivor Series War Games match, which Rollins and his team won. His most recent title defense was against Jey Uso, and now it seems as if we may be heading towards a Seth Rollins vs CM Punk match at WrestleMania 40. I feel like a lot of people would give Seth Rollins the #1 spot, and I can understand that. He's had a great year and has been a defending world champion since May, but I think there's another world champion in wrestling who feels a bit more like a world champion. Number 1, MJF. MJF has always been doing great work in AEW, but this might just be his best year yet. He won the AEW World Championship in late 2022 and is still champion in late 2023, and unless he's losing the title to Samoa Joe at World's End, he'll be champion heading into 2024 as well. Much like a few other names on this list, his first match of 2023 was amazing. He had a great world title eliminator match with Takeshita in February. Then a month later at Revolution, he had an outstanding 60-minute Iron Man match with Bryan Danielson, where he made Bryan Danielson tap out to retain the title. The Four Pillars title feud heading into Double or Nothing, while not great, ended in what was probably one of my favorite matches of the entire year. The Four Pillars Fatal 4-Way at Double or Nothing was insane. Crazy ass spots, each man doing their mentor's finishing move, MJF winning the damn thing with a freaking headlock takeover. Just incredible stuff. Then we move on to the Adam Cole storyline. What an incredible ride it's been for Better Than You, baby. The 30-minute time limit draw on Dynamite with MJF denying Adam Cole 5 more minutes. Then the two being paired together in the Blind Eliminator Tag Tournament. Each week a new vignette of the two bonding, all while Roderick Strong is trying to warn his buddy Adam Cole about what a snake MJF is. And as the tournament and silly videos continued, MJF and Cole actually started to like each other and considered each other good friends. We saw signs of a breakup between the two when Adam picked up MJF's world title and when Adam and MJF were unable to win the AEW tag team titles, but it never happened. You expect this team to fall apart any week, but they keep getting closer. MJF gives Adam Cole his title match in the main event of wrestling's biggest event in 2023. Not only that, MJF and Cole win the ROH tag titles on the buy-in of AEW All in London, just hours before their huge main event against one another. Granted, that tag title stuff was a bit extra, but I loved every minute of it. And that all-in main event. It might have been a bit too much for some people, but seeing Cole and MJF have another draw and MJF getting on the mic to say,
"We're going till we got a winner in fucking Wembley!"
What a great moment. MJF goes on to Grand Slam to beat Samoa Joe to retain his AEW championship. He wins the Dynamite Diamond Ring for like the 4th year in a row. He beats freaking Kenny Omega in a great match on Collision to surpass Omega's reign as AEW champion. And I know the antics leading up to MJF versus Jay White at Full Gear was a bit much, but they still put on a pretty good match, and that's what I love to see. The ROH tag title stuff is unfortunate because Adam Cole got hurt, but I kind of like the fact that MJF cares for Cole so much that he'll keep defending the tag titles by himself until Cole is recovered. Now the only thing left for MJF to do this year is to find out who the hell the devil is and beat Samoa Joe at World's End. Even with a few bumps in the road this year, MJF overcame them and had a great 2023. He defends his world championship more than Roman Reigns and puts on amazing matches just like Seth Rollins. I feel like he's the perfect blend of both world champions and then some. That's why for me, MJF is the #1 wrestler of 2023. Thank you all for watching. Let me know your top 10 or top 25 down in the comments below. Did you hate the list? Did you love the list? I don't know. I don't care. It's my list, so meh. Hope you all enjoyed it though, and I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.